Hello everyone and welcome back to From the Depths with me, Cargo. We're back in the adventure mode aboard the Thousand Sunny, and I've run into this error a number of times. Now, I wanted to include this in the video because in case you guys are running into this error, you know how to get around it. Basically, it seems to be that this error appears whenever folders of saved things are changed or edited or something to that effect. It's hard to pin down exactly what's going on, but basically the game can't figure out where the thing was saved, and so when it tries to load the blueprint, it fails, and then it completely destroys it, and you don't get any refund for what you had. I tried a number of ways to get around this. I even looked at editing the save file to see if I could, correct the file path or whatever. I didn't find a good way around this. So what I'm going to be doing from here on out, because I did end up losing 100,000 resources to this bug, is I'm going to be finding a place where I can deconstruct all of my vehicles and then save. Alright, so here we are loading back in our hounds to fix that bug that we were running into, and a White Flare's Buzzsaw has spawned in. Fought against the White Flare's Buzzsaw a couple of times now, and it can't win against any of the hounds. It loses a 1v1 against the hounds. So given that we have two of them out already, we should be more than fine. It is substantially faster than the carrier, and I was doing some work on the propulsion, so we can't currently run away anyway. We can move it maybe 3 meters tops. I'm not going to bother because it won't make a difference. This thing is way too fast. It should hit us at an angle where it can't really do too much damage, though. It should hit just above the water line, which, I mean, yeah, look at that. Oh no, my bridge. Oh man, it tried. And after that, we find a Marauder to blow up. Man, this thing is satisfying to destroy. Look at that. Look at the block confetti. And then after this Marauder, we shoot up one of these things. I don't know what it is. I didn't ask its name. It kind of just, showed up and died in 2 hits. Oh my. Now what do we have here? This looks like a Steel Strider's transport. The Weaver. Alright. Well, in terms of armament, first off, it's a very cheap craft that's carrying a very large amount of materials. And second, in terms of armament, it looks like it has about 4 APSs total. And no active defenses, a tiny amount of ERA, but other than this is a cosmetic craft, so this is just money. And then we get attacked by this little thing. Now I gotta say, I really love the look of these things. Honestly, I like the White Flares in general. I'm just amazed that everything consistently looks so spiky and evil. I have a hard time getting aesthetic builds to work out well, let alone perform. And just everything in the White Flares stands out to me as impressive that way. Now you might be saying, Cargo, aren't you in a little bit of a low-level zone? What are you still doing here? Aside from kicking this puppy that's named as Steamworks. So let's answer that question with a bit of a time skip. Here we are, probably about 5 hours, IRL hours, or 6, somewhere in there. Further in-game. We are still in the exact same zone. I had to do a whole lot of digging to see if I could figure out what exactly that bug was, if there was a way I could fix it, and I never turned up anything. Alright everybody, welcome back. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. We have gone through a red portal. Now, currently, we're in the single-player designer, and we hopped over here because I didn't have the chance to get the footage that I wanted to cover the changes on the craft. So, let's start with the most important one, I think. The change from the Hound to the Bloodhound. Now, there's a number of changes on this vehicle. The biggest ones are the ammunition. So this is a 104mm, down from a 180mm, 6-barrel autocannon. The hash damage on this is about 7,500, whereas the hash damage on this is about 15,000. But this fires a little over 6 times as fast. So it is literally 3 times damage. That being said, there's a lot less gunpowder, so it does have to get in much closer. The shells are also a little bit less accurate, so they spread around a little more, but I think that's part of the fun. Anyway, this gun is about 3 times the HESH DPS, and it needed some more recoil absorbers, so we've added some here. As far as the
interceptors, they are pretty much unchanged. The only thing to talk about here is we've added an infrared camera, which can see incoming missiles. It helps a lot to detecting them and shooting them down. The missiles themselves are a whole segment longer, and they're covered with an aerodynamic hatch. And the aerodynamic hatch goes from 300 HP on the regular gantry to 800 HP on the hatch, and plus 10 armor. So the aerodynamic hatch is much more durable, so these missile systems won't take as much damage, and the whole thing has been properly EMP proofed. This thing has a little bit of EMP absorption on it, but it'll still take substantial damage from the right angles. This thing doesn't really care about EMP. The next big change is that I got rid of this dumbass gimbal on the butt. I was really excited to see if I could have this. I was going to try to bind the strafe commands from the turning of the front thrusters and the angling of the back, so that way it could strafe, but the thrust is not balanced properly. I do think you could do that, but trying to maintain the pitch control with the current thruster setup that I've got just isn't possible on this craft. So I ditched the dumb gimbal, I built it straight into the butt, and this thing can now go about 60 to 65 meters a second, whereas this craft could really only top out at 45. This thing's AI is much more aggressive as well. So since the gun is much closer range, it goes directly towards the target, it gets a lot closer, and it closes the distance very fast. There's a lot of things that the Bloodhound can catch with its extra 20 meters a second of speed. So yeah, all in all, it's a much higher performance one. It goes through about twice the engine power as well. Very happy with how the Bloodhound has turned out. I would call the Bloodhound actually good. These two are basically twins, and this twin has a good reputation because he's really hardworking and he does a good job. And this twin gives this guy a bad name because he's a piece of scrap. On to the actual craft itself. You might notice that it has changed quite a lot. I'm still not happy with the color scheme. Let's go ahead and like change it up a little bit. I want to go with some sort of bright color, although I don't really want to go with red, but I'm thinking orange or green. As far as the systems goes, we've got a laser munition defense, anti-munition defense, whatever the hell it's called. It's a little turret like this. It's got a transceiver set up. We've got munition warners and detectors and stuff set up all over the place to see incoming fire. We've got a pretty strong laser system, so if we go down in here, it's a little bit disorienting, but I'll show you my laser system. It currently eats about 8,500 engine power a second. Sustained damage starts at 5,200. This is a pretty beefy laser system, and if we go and take a look at it on the side, I know these building cameras from inside the vehicles are not always ideal. We have 18 regular cavities and 6 storage cavities. We have 3 on this side, 3 on this side, 18 in the middle, and then this is mirrored on both sides for redundancy, so that if one side gets hit, the munition defense still works. We are still mostly RTG powered, although it's got to be said we still have some legacy compartments that we got to get rid of. Our RTGs and batteries are spread between 2 compartments. One is mostly RTG and the other one is mostly battery. Again, just for redundancy, if one gets hit, we'll still have the other. We also have a very large material store. So I have so much material store on this thing because of what I have to do to get around this bug that I keep running into. So the bug is basically the save path for sub-vehicles in the adventure mode doesn't always work correctly. And so what happens is you have 4 hover tanks and a few submarines out, and you save your adventure, and then you leave because IRL calls, and you have to go do something. And then you come back, and when you try to load in, it doesn't reload the vehicle blueprints correctly, and you lose 200,000 or 300,000 material. Or at least that's what happened to me during part of this retrofit process. So what we have to do now is when I reach a stopping point, I have to despawn all of my vehicles and then save there in order to avoid losing materials. If you're good with the save editor, you might be able to get around this by save editing, but I'm not, and I don't like doing anything with save editors. So yeah, I lost about 200,000 materials just due to that bug in the course of recording this video, so that was nice. But yeah, I don't have a way around that. I tried moving all the vehicles that I was loading to this first folder and then despawning everything and respawning it in right from here. That way the path would be, simpler and organized, but that did not work. I think it has something to do with the number of sub-vehicles, but again, I couldn't turn up anything on it. On to the Citadel. The Citadel, I'm very happy with the Citadel, and I'm generally really, really bad at building Citadels. But this one is turning out quite nicely. At least for as far as mine are concerned. I've got a little bit of mimic work left to do so that these things all look correctly. Like this is a little bit ugly. That can be fixed with the mimic. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with this thing. It is a layer and a half of metal, at least, or two. Either two... I'm shooting for about 2 layers of metal, and then a layer of wood. I do have some places where there are intentional metal paths into the craft, and they are guarded with EMP surge protectors. There's surge protectors all over this thing. It's basically a giant block of armor with spaces, and in the spaces there's helium pumps to help offset the weight of all the armor. So I think this is one of the best Citadels that I've ever built, actually, and that might not be saying very much because my Citadels are not pretty good. But this thing is tanky, and it absorbs EMP all day long. Plans for the future? I want to restructure these docks a little bit, and I want to add shield projectors on them. I also want to get another one of these Lamme's nodes that I have over here. I want to get one dead center up top, and I want to finish the Citadel out over here, get a third one up, basically mirrored it from the front to the back. I've got these little detection suites that are worth talking about. Now, these are not all the same. Basically, if I'm missing something, I just go onto one of these and change to what detectors it has. I've gone ahead and stripped one of these apart so that you can see what's going on. I fire just about 1 shell every 5 seconds. And I've got 4 of them on either side. These are 250mm cannons firing 1 meter shells. So I'll go ahead and show you the ammo that these are firing. These are firing disruptor smoke. The purpose of these is to do... Now, this shell design is something that I've basically taken out of mothballs from an old battleship. So I came up with the idea to use this shell on secondaries, and it's really good against things that have both shields and laser munition defense. The thing about EMP is most advanced craft are going to have some EMP protection, but the blocks that absorb EMP are not great at absorbing straight up physical damage, which means most often you're still going to see some EMP susceptibility on everything. And if you hit right next to a vulnerable component, the EMP can sometimes be more useful than heat and HESH, even when you're firing it at a craft that's generally protected against it. So EMP, scattered EMP damage is always kind of useful. All in all, I really like these little secondaries. They're really useful. It's got to be said. It's just, you never know. Like these secondaries against something like the Megalodon are just amazing, because the Megalodon doesn't actually have great EMP protection in all of its places. So little guns like this can actually disable the active defenses on a Megalodon, and then, you know, your standard weaponry just works against it. So yeah, pretty happy with these secondary designs, pretty happy with the shaping of the Citadel. I haven't got firing restraints set up on it, but we'll have that done in no time. I haven't gotten to setting up the shield generators just yet, but we'll be doing that soon. I think I'm going to put them on the new turret docks, so probably whenever I redo the turret docking stations for the tanks. The next video will be hopefully a whole bunch of very cool fights between very cool craft. For the time being, this video itself, between recovering the several 100,000 materials that I lost due to the bug, and also all the time spent retrofitting this craft, trying to improve it, get it up to par, and make it something worth watching, ended up taking me about 9 hours of gameplay before editing time. I haven't finished editing, so obviously I can't tell you how long that took. But yeah, the point that I'm trying to get at is I don't think that I can maintain the video every weekday. At least not... I can't do that and have it be a video worth watching. So right now I usually spend on average about 12 or 13 hours a day trying to crank these out. If I haven't mentioned before, basically I set aside a time frame and I'm trying to see if I can get a YouTube channel going. So yeah, dedicating about 12-13 hours a day to doing this. Probably gonna, I hope I can do it every other weekday. But right now, I'm trying to work on the adventure mode like full-time daily, and I'm building extra craft sort of like late at night and on the weekends to keep this going. Gonna have to slow that down. So, unfortunately, I can't keep making adventure mode videos at the rate that I was. As the craft get larger, it just takes more time to do all of the adjustments and fixes, and then I have to, undo and dismantle stuff, and of course the larger it is, the more time that takes. So yeah, if I want to make decent videos, they're gonna take time. As the craft get bigger and bigger and bigger, the time to make those videos gets longer and longer. So for those who want the daily uploads, no can do with things this big. Just takes too long to build them. That being said, this episode took in total somewhere around, I'm about to finish up the editing, it's only 16 minutes long, and it took me around about 14 hours spread across 2 days just to finish. So yeah, I do hope that you enjoy. If you have any feedback for me, I'm always looking for some, but for now, I've been Zacargo, and this has been fun. I'll see you next time.